I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is my March reading wrap-up. So if you are a regular viewer, you'll notice that my hair is different. Is it what I wanted? No. Do I love it? No. Have I had this hairstyle before? Yes, I have. It's fine. So that's where we're at with that. But in March, I read 20 books. I DNF'd one DNF in 31 days. So I'm going to talk about 19 of them. Now, you will probably notice that because I did not DNF as much, I actually have a much lower than average, probably, rating for the month, but that's fine. There is also no top 5 for March. I did not have enough 5 stars or books that I loved for it. I had 4 5 stars, including a reread and a Patreon short. So I didn't have a very high reading month, so. Right, as always, we're going in chronological order. If they're available in KU, it's marked in the description. All of the books are listed and linked in the description, yada, yada, yada. Same thing as all my videos. Okay, first one was Anne of the Island, which is Anne of Green Gables #3 by Ella Montgomery. I'm rereading the series. I read it last as a teenager or young preteen, somewhere in there. I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, we follow Anne Sherie, who is an orphan that we follow from the age of 11 in the first book. This book, she's finishing up college. She also realizes that she is in love with her best friend and finally stops fighting that and you get the epic romance of Anne and Gilbert, although by no means is the romance the focus of these books, but we have finally reached the point where she has admitted to herself and to Gilbert and to others that yes, she does in fact love him. Then I read Exodus 23 by Freydis Moon. I started this in February. I had a very hard time finishing this book for no reason. So because of that, it's 4 stars. This is a Latinx queer story with kind of a erotic religious element. So it's a little bit sacrilegious in that way. If you are a practicing Catholic, you might not enjoy those aspects. But we have a trans man who is not completely medically transitioned and I believe has no plans to, so that you have that representation, and his romance with a biblical angel. So the angels that don't look like the angels that you're thinking of, the angels with like the eyes all over the wings and stuff. It was really good. I enjoyed it, but like I said, I did struggle to actually pick it up and read it. Next, I have Held in Contempt, which is an erotic novella by Aveda, Sherie. I should have written more neatly. This was a recommendation from Tracy at Book Into Bookin', and I gave this 5 stars. So, like I said, this is an erotic novella. I was reading it, and I was like, oh, this is 4 stars. Then, conflict, I was like, oh, 3 stars. Then, the conflict was resolved, revealed, all of these things, and I was like, holy crap, 5 stars. So you have a lawyer and kind of her erotic affair, but you should also be aware that the villain is a racist and uses racist language and tries to target her pretty much specifically because she is a Black woman, and so there is the N-word with the R used by a racist multiple times in the book. I wouldn't call that necessarily the focus of the novella, but if you completely don't want to read it, it is present there. He does get what's coming to him. I mean, I personally would have liked it to be a little bit more violent, but it's fine. But so that part of the happily ever after is that he gets what's coming to him, but it is present in the book. Then I reread Maybe Next Time, which is Vegas Nights #1 by Christina C. Jones. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. This is probably my all-time favorite Christina C. Jones. It just pushes all my buttons just right. I just love this one. It is a marriage in crisis with a content warning for miscarriage, and you have a husband who kidnaps his wife until she admits that she's still in love with him. So I loved it. It's a little bit on the darker side. You've got definite touch her and die vibes. And it's not dark really, besides the kind of kidnapping and the obvious content warning for miscarriage and grief and the fallout of that and how that can really affect a couple. Then I read Claiming His Queen by Ella Goode. I gave this 2 stars. This was mafia. She was a very defenseless, naive, and clumsy mafia princess, basically. And this, I really didn't appreciate this. So her mom is a mafia boss, and her entire operation is basically female assassins and con artists and stuff. They use all of their attributes to seduce men and get the secrets and get everything that they need, and they are all so competent and so extremely highly trained. And then her precious only daughter, she didn't train in anything. Like, she literally knows nothing and is completely defenseless and can't do a single solitary thing. So I did not like it. Then I read a Camboy Pie Part 1, which was Aveda Vice's Patreon short for March. I gave this 5 stars. So this is kind of like fan fiction of Feed. So in this one, Pie is Averin's boss, and he's also a sex worker doing cam work, and she pays to watch him and to interact with him. And so they're not in the same room at all in this short, but it was very good. Then I read Rustic Hearts, which is Poplar Falls #1 by Amber Kelly. This was a recommendation from Ava at Ava's Romance Books. I did write down the channel name because I cannot remember it to save my life. And I gave this 4 stars. So this is a small town romance, and she had recommended it to me specifically, and then she had posted about it on Instagram again, and it kind of already had it on my TBR. It hit me right in the mood, and I was like, yes, I want to read that right now. So I went and picked it up. So basically, her mom left her dad when she was a kid, and they left in the middle of the night, and she hasn't talked to her father since then. She hasn't seen her father since then, any of her father's family, the town that she grew up in, her friends from back then. She's lived in New York City ever since leaving the ranch and has had no contact with anybody. And it's very obvious that her mom lied about the events of her leaving, but she just really has a lot of bitterness and anger against her dad, which he hasn't talked to her. So some of that is extremely valid, some of it is misplaced. But so she is the, princess coming back. Her grandmother died, so content warning for that. She's back for the funeral. And her father, there was a woman that he was cheating on her mother with, and that woman adopted her niece and nephew when their parents died, and the nephew picks up the princess, and obviously she has a lot of animosity towards them because she really views them as the family that replaced her and her mom. So very understandable, even as an adult, that like she's instantly not happy to be around him or have to be with him. And he just thinks that she's spoiled and, useless. They have a very hate to love relationship. This is a little bit of a slow burn, but not really time-wise, but is kind of in the pacing of the book. They definitely kind of get to grudging respect before they get, and lust before they get to any feelings. So he's definitely possessive, but not in a toxic way, and there's no third act breakup in this, so I did really enjoy that. Then I read Cups of You, which is Coffee Shops of Love #1 by Carmen Lee. I gave this 4 stars. This is another small town romance. Again, she is coming back to her hometown, and he is the newish coffee shop owner. She's never met him before. Her aunt fell and needs help, and so she's back to help her, and her boyfriend, who she lives with back in the city, didn't want her to come help. It's like a Hallmark movie, a little bit steamier, and this is not really meant to be a rom-com, but the humor that was in it I found very humorous, and I laughed out loud several times, so it really worked for me and my sense of humor. This is a slow burn. Not only are you going to take almost the entire book for them to get together, but also after they finally decide to pursue something with each other, they wait so many months for having sex, and I was just like, I can't do this. Why are we doing this? Who does this? So it's slow burn in every sense of the word. And you have a cinnamon roll, single dad, and a prickly heroine. Then I read Carnage Island by Lexi C. Foss. I gave this 4 stars. This is a sweet omegaverse, and you have 3 alphas, 1 omega, or 4 alphas, I can't remember. And so there's content warning for rape and murder of a loved one at the very beginning. And why we saw that on page, I'm really not sure, but her mother was raped and killed in front of her when they found out that she was this certain type of wolf. So the mother said that she was raped, and her mate was like, I don't care, rape her, kill her, I don't care, she was unfaithful to me. So obviously very, very terrible pack that she's coming from. But then she gets sent to this reject island, basically, and it turns out the island is really more of a cover for a rebellion that is happening. And so the alphas there then get their hands on this rare omega, but they are very protective, very caring. There's a little bit of lack of communication in some ways, but they are not abusive towards her. And there's also the repeated mention of rape and abuse of other women, although nothing particularly happens to her, is threatened against her, but she's okay. Then I read Technical, which is St. Louis Cyclones #2 by Alexandria House. I gave this 5 stars. This is her NBA basketball series that follows the team that the McLean brother, Neil, I think, is on. This one opened with a bang. I was like, whoa, what are we doing? What has happened in this first chapter? I was not expecting it, and it really just kind of flew my mind. But you do have a single mom, and then you just have this NBA player who wants to take care of her and the baby, and that's it. It's not his kid. He just met her, but he just really wants to take care of her, and that's pretty much what happens with the storyline. There's content warnings for childhood domestic abuse, a graphic birth scene early in the book, and the flashbacks and the nightmares and stuff of the childhood domestic abuse. I loved it. The romance between the couple was very sweet. I really enjoyed their dynamic, and yeah, I just loved what they gave to each other. It was really beautiful. Then I read Lick, which is a vampire quickie by Nikki Clark. I gave this 3 stars. I read Taste by Nikki Clark, which is kind of spoiled in this book, so if you are going to read them, you should read Taste first. And I loved Taste, and I just thought Lick was okay. So again, I would recommend starting with Taste. Lick is vampires, it's bad communication. In this world with her vampires, basically they can only be aroused or have sex with either the person who made them or the vampire that they make, so sire or protege, basically. So he has been a vampire for hundreds of years, and she just turns into a vampire at the beginning of the book. This does follow the best friend of the main character in Taste, and they have bad communication. They are fated mates, and that was really it. It's very short, and there wasn't a lot to it. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great. Then I have Stolen Ice Bride, which is Stolen Brides of the Fae #5 by Angela J. Ford. I gave this 1 star. This is a novella. It is a fae, so he is a fae ice prince, and she has this mysterious, dangerous power that she takes this medicine for to try and suppress, and she is sure that she will kill everyone around her if she ever lets it get out. The mages are the bad guys, and the Mage King, they always come and take brides from the village, and the Mage King has seen a vision about how his new bride will have the power to help him take over the world, and he picks her and says that she's his bride. So she tries to run away. While she's trying to run away, she gets kidnapped by this fae ice prince. And so he kidnaps her, and they go off in the mountains. But this was just, there was no actual development. It was just the author telling you things. There was nothing, there was no chemistry. There was no scenes where you were like, oh, here, it was just the author being like, oh, now I feel bad that I kidnapped you. Oh, now I love you. Like, there was really nothing to it. I really thought it was terrible. I thought the beginning was okay, and then it just went so badly. There is no steam. There's just a kiss on page, which is totally fine, although not what I was expecting, but it was just, there was no quality conversation or anything meaningful between the main couple. There was no reason for them to be willing to sacrifice everything in their life for each other. There was no reason for it. You can't just have the author say, now we love each other, and that be good enough. And I really felt like that's what this was. Then I read Turmoil, which is Elite of Elmwood #1 by J.L. Weil. I gave this 4 stars. This reminded me a lot, the whole series did, of Fallen Crest High by Tejan. They are very different stories, and this one is a lot more explicit, and the storylines themselves are different, but there were a lot of things that reminded me of it. And I'm not saying anything like plagiarism or anything like that, but I'm just saying there was a lot of things that reminded me of Fallen Crest. One, you have this group of boys who are friends, and then she comes in and she's part of the group of boys, but she has a romance with one, so this is not a reverse harem. And then also there's all these things where there was just many different boxes checked throughout the series that really just reminded me of Fallen Crest High. Okay, so there were some things that were said and the way that things were said, etc., that I strongly disagreed with. Like, I just took issue with it. I did find these incredibly readable. I have a huge problem with the villain and the conflict of the story. So basically, her mother is a gold digger. She just married into a rich family, and her stepbrother is a rapist, and she is not safe. She does not feel safe, and honestly, this really angered me throughout the series, especially as the series progressed. The only reason she wasn't raped is because the author didn't want her to be raped. There was no reason for him not to rape her. She was not being careful, which, please no, not victim blaming, but she would often like go by herself to confront him, knowing that he is a rapist and that he wants to rape her. She wouldn't tell anybody where she was going. She wouldn't bring any backup. She would just do all these really stupid things that just made me so mad, because in reality, you don't get that many chances with nothing happening. You don't get to be that stupid. You know exactly what you're going into, and you're doing it anyways for no good reasons. Literally no good reason. So that honestly made me very angry that we just kept doing this. That does happen more, I would say, in the second and third books, but didn't make me really angry. So be aware that the big conflict is the rapist stepbrother. So if you don't want to read that, and also there's going to be lots of times where like she's not allowed to leave the house and she's trying to get away from him and things like that. It's just uncomfy. Okay, so be aware of that as a content warning. The first book does end on a cliffhanger, and then I read book 2, which is Disorder, and I gave that 2 stars. The twist from the cliffhanger of the first book was so weird to me. I was just like, what? Why are we doing this? And why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing any of this? Very weird. There's a lot of phrasing that is very slut-shamey, etc. And again, just the stupid decisions of constantly putting herself in danger with this stepbrother. And again, the only reason she's okay is the author willed it to be. Then I read the third book, which is Revenge. I gave this 2 stars as well. You have the continued conflict with stepbrother. The other conflict in this third book, I really did not like. Did not like it at all. Did not think it was a good choice. Did not, again, is very slut-shamey stuff, very girl against girl. You know, you can't trust other girls. They're so catty, and you know, I didn't like it. I didn't like that part. It was so cracky though. Like I read these books back to back to back, and I really did like them in a lot of ways, but there was just these specific things that I was just like, no. Little irritating things, choices made by the author that I didn't like, couldn't agree with, and you know, I didn't like the way they talked about other women at all. Then I read Jealous, which is a Possessive Man #1 by Lena Little. I gave this 1 star. So I don't think I've had any 1 stars yet this year, but I had 2 in March. This one was Daddy Little Girl. And okay, so Daddy Little Girl is a kink where 2 consenting adults do age play. So the female, the girl, will pretend to be much younger. And I have to say, that's just something I don't like. It makes me uncomfy. I'm not trying to yuck other people's yum. Again, a consensual adult is not the same thing as pedophilia, but it makes me very uncomfortable. I do not enjoy it. And the language in this really just was icky to me. I did not like it. It was not good. It was very insta-love. Like, he sees her and was like, that's the girl for me. You have spit used as lube. Always a pet peeve. these were very two-dimensional characters, and then you had the little girl kink kind of brought into their parenting once they were parents, and I found that to be very weird. So no, I was annoyed by this book. 1 star. Do not recommend. Then I read Lord and Lady Spy by Shayna Galen. This was a rec from Rachel Reads and Sings. I gave this 3 stars. This is a historical romance with a marriage in crisis. So she had done a video and I was like, oh, I've heard of this book before, but again, mood perfect. Yes, I will read that today. So that's what I did, and the plot in this was not good. The whole spy, so this is basically like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith fan fiction historical romance. So it's basically their plot. You have these 2 spies that are married to each other but don't know that they're both spies, and then something comes out and now they're fighting for the same position and stuff. Again, you have content warning for miscarriage in this, so that was once again kind of one of the big catalysts to their marriage being in crisis. However, they never knew the real each other because they were spies undercover. One thing I did like about this, because she's very dowdy and dresses very frumpy and has glasses, and everyone just considers her to be a little mouse, and then he meets her basically on a mission and she's completely different. You know, his wife is gorgeous and he's just like, what is happening? And I liked that the author, it was just like 1 line, so you could easily miss this, but I really liked that the author said explicitly that it was more than she took off her glasses and put on a good fitting dress and now she's beautiful. It was her entire demeanor. So she really had crafted this master disguise where her entire demeanor and the way that she conducted herself, held herself, spoke, all of those things was completely different. So it wasn't just she took off her glasses and now she's beautiful. It's she changed everything about how she presented herself to you, and that was the real difference. Although also having a dress that fit well and showed her curves and things like that definitely piqued her husband's interest. But I did like that she included that line because glasses don't make you ugly. So yeah, the plot itself was really not very good. It was very subpar, but I did like the characters and their interactions. One thing I did kind of take issue with was that there was no birth control discussed, and she wouldn't have sex with him because she was so afraid of getting pregnant again because they'd had multiple miscarriages, and there was birth control options available and they never talked about that at all, not even pulling out, like nothing. They never viewed that as any sort of option, and I thought that was a little bit odd. And it does end with a pregnancy. You don't find out necessarily whether it comes to full term or not, but when the book ends, she has found out that she's pregnant again. So again, be aware of that. Fertility issues are not to be diminished, I guess. Like, it's a very serious and very real thing that really weighs on you and takes a toll. And so I want to always, if I can, make sure that I mention that anytime it's present, because sometimes emotionally you don't want to read it. Then I read Truck Driver by Jessica Kane. This was because of Megan at Pat. Uh-oh, I literally just made fun of her for being a good friend but not knowing her friends' channel names. This past romance, that's it. I was like, a past romance time? This past romance. So she was like, Heather, can you read this for me? And it was short and I love her, so I said yes. It was not good. It was not good. So you have a truck driver and you have a basically rest stop diner waitress. So he's been hired to traffic her, which I just thought was a very odd thing. He hasn't trafficked anybody. He did it on purpose so that nobody would actually get her, but it was a weird thing. You have breeding kink. She gets pregnant and then hides it from him. Also, he is, you know, trying to kill people for her. Again, you have spit as lube. Why? Why must we do this? What is so unsexy about just getting some lube? He goes completely feral and she's not really sure that he would be safe to be around, but still lets him in her apartment. So you have that. He's very obsessed and baby. Then lastly, I read Brutal Prince, which is Brutal Birthright #1 by Sophie Lark. I gave this 4 stars. I know so many booktubers have recommended Sophie Lark over and over and over. She's also very popular on Book Talk, but I have always kind of felt like she was an author that would work for me, and I've just been putting off reading her for no good reason. But Naima at Naima's Reads loves Sophie Lark and is part of the reason why I've kept her on the TBR even though I hadn't actually picked anything up. So I finally read it. You have the heir to one mafia being forced into a marriage of convenience to keep the peace with the daughter of another mafia, and the daughter just tried to burn his house down after breaking in. But he retaliated, things have escalated, and so the fathers decided they are going to get married to keep the peace. He is very attracted to her, she's very attracted to him, but they truly hate each other. And this is a great marriage of convenience where they go from hate to lust to respect to love, which is honestly a progression that I love. And this one does that very well. At the beginning of the book, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me, especially because I just felt like she was making really dumb decisions. But it really did end up working for me. I did really like their relationship. They could have used with a little bit more communication, but he was definitely touch her and die vibes. And there was a plot hole. If you read this book, you know that her phone gets taken away during one drama crisis. And then after that, supposedly her phone was being used to track her and had been for ages, but that doesn't make sense because she didn't get her phone back. Her phone was lost. So how could this person still be tracking her through her phone when she didn't have it? Oh, that bugged me so much. I was like, no, you can't have both. There's some torture scenes in this. That's it. So she really set up the next book. Like, I read the synopsis for that book and I was like, holy crap. So yes, I will definitely be reading more Sophie Lark. I did really enjoy it. Wasn't a complete 5 stars, but very enjoyable. Had a couple of issues and that was really it. So those are all the books I read in March. I did read the large majority of these. In like a week and a half. In the middle of March when I was actually reading, and the rest of the month I really barely read. Like, I finished Brutal Prince a while ago, and I didn't read like the first 2 weeks of March either. So yeah, most of this was like a week and a half of reading. I am hoping to pick up the pace some in April. I have a lot of books that I really am trying to prioritize for April that I have plans for. So hopefully I start reading here soon. So that's it. That's all the books I read in March. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.